Alright guys, so here we have a quotation about Tiny Tim, who really is symbolic of infant mortality and childhood poverty in Victorian England, and I'll talk about those two things in a little moment. So firstly, we've got Tiny Tim. We've got the diminutive Tiny, which obviously makes him seem small. He is small, and the alliteration of his name to emphasise this. We've then got he bore a little crutch. Little, obviously, again, is a diminutive and again emphasises his weakness and his small physical stature, followed by crutch, which is a visual image of all his ill health. It's symbolic of childhood illness at this point. We don't know the reason for Tiny Tim's disability. However, we can probably guess that it is malnutrition. And a lot of children at this point in the Victorian era would suffer from malnutrition and would have physical effects of that too. His limbs are supported. So this shows his vulnerability and emphasises that all children within society need support to grow up. They can't just fight and struggle on themselves. So again, children need support. Victorian era didn't offer that support, and as a result, infant mortality was incredibly high. Finally, we've got iron frame. Now, what we can see is this literally is a support for walking, and again, it emphasises his weakness. It emphasises, along with the crutch, his disability. I think we can look at a sort of deeper, more significant meaning of iron frame though. If you bear with me for a second, this is a complex, maybe slightly speculative idea, but we see throughout A Christmas Carol lots of things that link to the Industrial Revolution, such as smoke, steel, here, iron. Iron was a huge part of the Industrial Revolution. So this iron frame helps Tiny Tim walk, it supports him. Now the Industrial Revolution supported all the many tens, hundreds of thousands of people that worked in factories in London. They needed those jobs in factories supporting the Industrial Revolution for a very small wage. However, it is the Industrial Revolution that put them in that position in the first place. The Industrial Revolution is the reason people moved out to the countryside and into cities. So we see the Industrial Revolution as both being the cause of all of society's problems for the poor Londoners, but also the only relief they get, the only way they can make money is by engaging in the Industrial Revolution. In the same, the iron frame here is symbolic of Tiny Tim's illness and his malnutrition, but it is also the thing that supports him. He needs it. So I think we can perhaps talk about a symbolic meaning of that and link it to the Industrial Revolution. In the link quotes box there, we can see more about Tiny Tim's ill health and the obvious fact that as we progress, we see that Tiny Tim is dying and how that affects both Bob and how that affects Scrooge. Throughout this, I've also talked about the infant mortality rate. Just in the context box, you can read about what that is more there if you don't know. It is really the percentage of children who die before the age of 5. Now today, the average is about 4 children out of 1,000 who would die before the age of 5 in modern society. Obviously very tragic and very sad when it happens, but very rare. 4 children out of 1,000. In Victorian England, only 300 would die before the age of 5. That's almost a third of all children dying before the age of 5. It's 75 times higher than it is today. So really tragic consequences of poverty in Victorian England, and Tiny Tim is symbolic of this.